Everyone, and welcome to Denial eSports Interview. I am your host, Wingsltd, and joining me today is Resterian.
Hi, how's it
All right.
going?
So, tell everyone just a little bit about yourself before joining Denial and why you did.
All right. Before joining, before joining Denial, I was the team leader of what was then, well, before then was Borderland Gaming EU. BLG was quite a prominent community site that was set up at the beginning of SMITE, and I kind of got in touch with Demon, and Demon Machine became good friends. And she started up a team. The team changed a lot over sort of the course of the past year. It feels weird having played Smite for a year. And eventually, as we got big enough, Denial approached Demon Machine, and I found out that we were going to move to Denial. And I was quite happy because I've been looking forward to kind of moving up in the competitive esports world. So I'm really kind of pleased to be on Denial esports. Feels great.
And how exactly did you get into Smite? Like, what's your history of online gaming in general?
Ooh, I am quite unique in this, in that, well, pretty much all my life I've been playing games. I had a PS1, I was like 4, and used to mercilessly defeat my family. And I got into more like online games, sort of like MMOs, World of Warcraft, RuneScape. You're not really understanding what I was doing, really. And then I got into sort of shooters. I was okay at them. Played a bit of Counter-Strike Source, but wasn't that great. Then I got into a game called Land of Chaos Online. I don't know if it's still running, but I would call that the very third person MOBA. Even if you didn't really know what it was itself, it kind of just like said it was a bunch of different genres. So I played that for a while, became one of the kind of top players there. I was naturally a tank in that as well. And
Hmm.
then I moved on to a Korean third person MOBA called Cyphers, which a friend introduced me to. Again, I was very good at that and I enjoyed it. And then I heard about Smite, and I kept track of it through all of its development stages and prayed that I would get a closed beta invite. And sure enough, when the first couple of days I got the email, and I was so happy. And since then, I've pretty much been playing Smite, wanting to get as good and awesome as possible.
So, how did it feel whenever you were first entering in that closed beta stage of Smite and progressing up and feeling the meta change like every week or so?
Oh yeah, that was it was really hectic to begin with because like you'd have a hell reworked, and then you'd have all these new release Guan Yu, which was so incredibly overpowered that it looked like the game would be horribly like badly balanced, and that would die within the first few months. But then after release Guan, things started to settle down a bit, and then you had the PTS, which had the focus changes and new items and the new graphical changes and the map. it was it's really when I'm thinking back, it's amazing how much Smite has changed since the early stages. I mean, there was a more buff. There was like health buff, shield buff, and the jungle was bigger and had side like a jungle outside of the lanes, which got closed off.
Hmm.
So it's interesting to see how Smite's changed, but I think it's changed for the better, really. And now that the meta's sort of settled down, it's kind of easier to take it to competitive level, whereas before it was kind of, oh, we're having a huge change almost every month.
No, yeah, definitely. And what position do you currently play in game?
I play as a support tank in left side usually. We tend to swap sometimes with Game Hunter, who's my physical carry in left.
Physical carry left. And out of all the supports, which one do you favor the most on the current patch?
Oh, see, here's the thing. I would, in terms of my own personal preference and what I think is the strongest, is two different things.
Hmm. Personally.
Personally, personally, I will always be Hades' biggest fan. I absolutely love playing Hades, and Guan Yu comes very close second. As far as the strongest tank goes, in my opinion, that would probably be Odin, because
Odin.
his
So,
despite being one of the despite Odin being one of my slightly weaker gods,
mhm.
I do think he definitely has one of the biggest team fight presences and lane presences in the whole game.
Okay. And if you were forced to not play a support, what god would you go to then?
If I weren't playing support, I'm really liking Isis in terms of if I would play a mage.
Hmm.
I like Aphrodite and Isis because I still take like that sort of supportive role, but having a bit of extra damage is nice. If it weren't those two, it'd be Anubis. I just enjoy Anubis. I know he's woefully inviable, but very enjoyable. As far as an AD goes, that would probably be Neja.
Okay.
There's something very satisfying about dealing 1,000 crits end game. Very, very satisfying.
And I know a lot of the viewers are probably going to be North American, but is there an actual huge difference between the North American and an EU competitive scene and how people play, or is it pretty much the same all around, do you think?
I think before the split, the metas were quite similar, but after the scene split, we saw a lot of changes. I've heard that Ra and Hercules are played quite often in the American tournaments, whereas in the EU we don't tend to touch those gods particularly. Like we want to, but we're not quite prepared to. Hercules probably more likely to get picked than Ra, but rarely will you see them picked. Generally we tend to favor the more assassin type gods like Loki or Najar, whereas I think possibly the NA scene tends to favor probably like the more, whereas we go quite AD heavy, I think the America go is more mage heavy. I don't really know, I don't
Oh
keep
yeah, they
too much
love the
track of it.
Zeus.
Yes, the
The
Zeus.
Zeus.
We're thinking of bringing in Zeus this weekend, but you know, well, I want to see how it pans out.
And with the major changes, especially to Hades, he was able. What item was it that he was able to stack before that now they've just decided to take that off?
Oh, not necessarily just
The
on Hades, like
girdles?
the girdle of might, heavenly agility, and creeping curse. Before they got changed, they could, if you had tier one, tier two, and tier three on separate players, you could activate them together, and they would stack. In the case of heavenly agility and creeping curse, that's while it's like a strong speed buff or slow, it's not a huge deal as opposed to Girdle of Might, where having those three buffs on you could easily surpass a Fire Giant buff and maybe even possibly make almost double the strength of the Fire Giant buff in terms of power, which was quite broken.
Yeah, I heard Hades was hitting 480, I do believe, with those stacks
I
on
never
power.
tried it. I'm quite glad I didn't try it because I would feel really, really bad. But considering the kind of damage, like as a tank, if Hades is hitting for 480s, I can't imagine what a carry will be dealing.
And has your team had the opportunity? I know that you're scrimming quite a lot, especially compared to American teams. I don't think they scrim as much as EU, but have you guys been in any tournaments this year?
Um, we didn't play, haven't played any offline tournaments, but in terms of the weekly tournaments every Sunday, we've played pretty much every one we can, and we tend to place. I think we have a habit of placing second or third. We want to get that first place spot, but SK are not letting go of that anytime soon. But we're determined to take the top spot off them.
Oh, very nice. Have you started nipping at their heels already?
We had a successful scrim earlier this week, so we're confident that we can bring the same result on Sunday.
And what has been out of all that you've played? 'Cause I'm sure you played a lot of games since January. So out of 2013 so far, what has been your favorite Smite moment?
Oh, favorite Smite moment. Ah, that's a really tough one. I think there was a game against Copenhagen before Copenhagen was disbanded. There was a match where Game Hunter got caught out in left side. He was playing Hebo and he got ganked by three people. Not only did he survive, he got a double kill, and Trix Tank managed to come into lane to save him. So what looked to be like a easy kill for Copenhagen Wolves turned into a 3-0 trade. I was
Ooh,
so pleased. I could only watch from middle lane, but I was really sort of like stoked at that moment. I thought it was just a great play.
most definitely. And do you have any words of wisdom for new Smite players coming into the scene?
Ah, words of wisdom from these my players. Okay, if you're coming from League of Legends, let me kind of make it clear that there is no true jungler role. I go into some normal games and I find that people want to go jungle with Loki or Bakasura, and while you are capable of doing so, you the damage you deal to your own team in terms of experience and gold is not worth it. You will leave your side lanes woefully behind, and someone in 1v2 in this game is gonna have a real hard time in lane. So don't jungle. Aside from that, you should probably watch the SMITE Pro stream to pick up some sort of just sort of observe the professional players and see how they play and work on positioning and things. If you were to sort of if I would say like a god that might be good to begin with, you're probably looking at Wukong. While he's not a top picking competitive player, he's by no means kind of like subpar. He has great maneuverability, has a solid kit, and you should be able to kind of steadily rise up with him, as opposed to a god, say like Loki or Nijar, who are high risk and high reward, but probably more higher skill.
Okay. And do you plan on doing any Smite streaming yourself soon?
Uh, Unfortunately, my internet connection is woefully bad because I
Oh,
live in the British countryside. If I ever were to move into a place of a better connection, I will definitely stream.
okay.
So
Well,
maybe in the future.
hopefully in the future. Well, I'm looking forward to seeing what you guys are going to bring out to the table for Denial eSports and for Smite EU. And I would like to thank you for coming out here for this interview today. It's been
Uh,
quite a pleasure.
no problem.
But everyone, this has been Wingsltd interviewing Resty. Hope you guys have